Yes, I have a cell phone. No, you cannot reach me on it. Inspired by sure I can use my cell phone. A coworker's malicious compliance. I had a pretty good tech support job in the late 90s at a cool place to work. Since we had an on-call rotation, we had some nice perks. The company paid for a second phone line. Yeah, dial-up modems were still the thing. They also paid up to $X a month towards a cell phone or provided a company cell phone. The only constant thing is change. The company was bought up by a large conglomerate. As the Borg assimilated us, they announced that they would no longer pay for personal cell phones and company ones would only be given to those at the manager level or above. As an aside, how stupid is that? Determine who gets a tool by status, rather than the usefulness of the tool to the job? The rationale was that everyone has a cell phone nowadays. An incidental use for company business should not be a burden. We grumbled, but it was still a cool place to work. So most people went along. Most people, but not Bob. At first, when they collected everyone's contact number, meaning personal cell phone number, Bob gave them his desk phone number. Of course, emergency calls after hours went to voicemail. Typically, the operations center would call his home number next and usually get him. It took them a couple of on-call rotations to figure out that they didn't have his cell number. After a round of emails asking for it was ignored, he was summoned into the director's office and asked for it. He explained why he felt it was unfair that the company used his asset without reimbursement. He was told it would only be used for emergency, incidental use, and was a condition of employment. He reluctantly gave it up. Then came the malicious part. Cell phones were pretty basic at that time, talk and text. Really simple games. Most of the smarts were in the network. Bob found for an extra $2 per month. His phone line could block callers or send them directly to voicemail. Bob paid the $2 and set the company's outbound caller ID number to go directly to voicemail. When Bob was not on call, he turned off the audio alert for voicemail, and the only indication was a little envelope icon on the phone's 1.5 screen. On call, he got the alert, but only called back if he was away from home. Otherwise, he waited for the call on his landline. He said it was the best $2 a month he had spent. I left a year later, and Bob was still enjoying his cell phone on his terms. BTW, in 2021 dollars. A cell phone ran $1,000, and monthly service $60 to $100. Not that different from today. But the job paid $40 minus $50,000 then. And you got a limited number of talk minutes and texts for your $60. TL. Doctor. Company stops reimbursing for personal cell phones. A coworker makes sure the company's use of his cell is convenient for him, and not for them. I received multiple phone calls while on vacation from a particular manager. I informed them every time that I was on vacation and to refer to the documentation I sent before leaving to answer their questions. I finally blocked their number. On my return, I deleted my personal cell from the public directory. Gave it one trusted coworker. If it's so bad they bring you in, I trust you know when it's time to call me for my input. When I was a baby EMT, way more years ago than I care to count, I was partnered with a more seasoned paramedic who knew the ropes, knew the laws, and knew the tax code. He was one of those guys who was adamant about finding every legal exploit he could. Now, back in those days, we didn't have the fancy cardiac monitors that do everything but tuck you in at night. The LifePak 10s had just rolled out, and our company was a bit stingy with ECG electrodes. Only use them on patients who really need them. Nowadays we pretty much throw everyone on the Monitor because it's just a really convenient way to monitor vitals without having to do them manually every 10 minutes. Thus, we were required to have a wristwatch capable of displaying seconds in order to get a heart rate. This experienced paramedic asked if I'd bought this watch just for the job. "Yep," said I. "I'd bought a brand new Casio G-Shock watch." "Have you submitted your receipt for reimbursement?" asks the medic. "Reimbursement?" Quote, "Yep. If you bought this to fulfill the company requirement that you have a wristwatch with a second hand, you can submit it for reimbursement." The next day, I showed up early for my shift, receipt in hand, and walked over to the admin person. As soon as I entered her office, she saw the receipt, sighed, and said, "Let me guess. You worked with old paramedic. Quote, yes? Quote. Gimme the receipt. And that's how work bought me a brand new watch. Laughing face. My favorite response. Them. How do we reach you when you are not at work? Me. You don't. I had something similar happen last year. When I joined my employer a few years ago, I had a new cell phone waiting for me on my desk. Fast forward a few years and the phone is too old and no longer supported by the company that made it, and that prevents me from updating it to the latest OS. The mobile device standard at my employer requires that any remote devices must be vendor supported with patches or they can't be used. A couple years ago I moved between parts of the company and was under a different SVP. By that SVP's rules, I didn't fit the criteria for a work-provided cell phone. I didn't know this when I asked my manager about ordering a new phone and was told the new rule. He suggested that I enroll my personal phone in our BYOD program where my employer can monitor and control what I do with my phone. I declined. My personal mobile phone number is only in our HR system and not in the corporate directory, and I don't get work email on it either. Recent convo. Boss. Why is the data on your company phone so high this month? Me. I was on call. And I was up at the lake. Camping. I hotspotted the laptop into the company phone. Boss. Don't do that. If you were on call, then just hook it into Wi-Fi. Me. It's in the boonies. There isn't any Wi-Fi. Boss. I don't care. No hotspotting the company cell. Several weeks go by. Me. Boss. I am headed up to the lake. Camping this weekend. Boss. Have a good time. Me. I will. Oh. By the way. Keep an eye on the emails. That big project is running through the weekend. And since I am not allowed to hotspot my laptop, I won't be able to monitor the emails, generate purchase orders, or any of that stuff. If someone needs a PO, I am going to tell them to give you a call. Boss. Wait. What? Me. Have a good weekend. See you Monday. Monday. Boss. Do what you have to do to stay connected. If accounting bitches about the data usage, I will handle them. That use personal equipment for business use is a non-starter for me. You want to reach me? Call a business cell phone. You want me to do remote support on weekends? When do I get a company laptop with all and only company software? No, I won't use my personal computer, laptop. Another reason to not allow a company to require use of the personal cell phone is they want to put their software on it so that they can remote wipe it when you leave the company. F that. Edit. Just triggered a memory. Set the Wayback Machine for the late 1970s, early 1980s. Since this is during the pre-cell phones era. You know, the dark ages. Everything is still based on landlines. Anyway. I'm talking with the boss about a week-long vacation coming up. He asks, in jest, do they have telephones up there? Quote, Reply with, "Sure they do." Then wait a couple of seconds for, "Oh, you want to know what it is?" Quote. Incidental use for company business should not be a burden. Nope. Do not agree with that at all. If an employer wants to call me, they will provide a phone. And even then, I will be setting acceptable times. Never will they get access to my phone. Never will I allow anything loaded by a company onto any of my personal equipment. Glacier National Park has very little to no cell phone service. Every time I go on vacation I tell them I am going to Glacier. FYI, I have nicknamed my backyard Glacier. Also works for Voyagers NP in northern Minnesota. And now most people just send calls from unknown numbers to voicemail because they don't need an extended warranty for their vehicle that doesn't cover what the salesperson says it will. I was frequently out visiting clients in their homes. Originally, my employer provided company phones to all employees working outside of the office. Management changed and decided we needed to use our personal phones without reimbursement. Several of us decided to make life very, very difficult for anyone trying to reach us. We all suddenly had endless issues with our phones. It took about a month before policy changed and we were once again given company phones. Fuck 'em. My phone, not yours. A coworker was told the new company policy was that they'd pay for home internet. We all work from home. Or a cell phone with hotspot capability. But not both. Since the cell phone was required, they would no longer pay for his home internet. He argues that it'll cost them way more if he uses the hotspot since we download huge amounts of data. The manager says they don't care. The policy is the policy. Okay. My guy switches all his work internet traffic to his cell phone hotspot. Fast forward a couple months and said manager calls him up wondering why his cell phone data bill is off the charts. Guy, may I refer you to the stated policy? Manager, we'll pay for your internet. It always amazes me how people who don't do a job think they know how to do that job better. My employer once gave me a cell phone and encouraged me to use it. Even paid the bill. Unfortunately, the employer was Amazon and the phone was a Fire phone. I was so happy when they gave up on that and I could go back to my S5. My work keeps trying to get me to use my personal phone as a Wi-Fi hotspot for troubleshooting network issues. My stance is pretty much, sure, if you're paying for it. I had a similar issue. Large company and I was a desk jockey. All my work was at my desk or in meetings. All on a regular schedule like clockwork. There was never any type of emergency that could impact us. Think accounting. So no need to have us on call. Call us at home, etc. Only reason would be if you called in sick. Our directors got Blackberries as a perk. But was also a leash. They had a company-provided phone with email. But were essentially expected to be available 24/7. There was no reason for anyone on the team to have one. So no heartburn. I actually felt bad for those with the company phones and dreaded the day I might get one. So one day a new director and senior director took over our team. Tweedledum and Tweedledee. You can survive with one bad apple in your chain of command. But 2 in a row really sucks. I have so many stories of their bright ideas on fixing things that were not broken as well as their simple fixes that the experts have spent years trying to solve. Anyway, off to the story. One of the TDs got the idea to create a phone list of everyone's cell phone numbers so we could be on call and extra responsive to the organization. What this really was that the TDs had no clue what was going on. So when asked questions 24/7 they could not respond. They were looking bad and needed a way to respond outside of work hours. So now we would essentially have the same leash without the perk. So the list went around. All of the team got together and were like, WTF? We aren't on call and do not have company phones. This was mid-2000s, so phones were still charged by the minute. Most were just phones and not smartphones. A few technophobes had this new iPhone gadget. So we all agreed to just put in our desk phone. List then got turned in. TD then happened to approach a group of us with the list. TD. Hey guys. You were supposed to put your cell phone numbers, not your desk numbers. Me. Oh. I will once I get the phone number from the company-issued phone. Colleague 1. Oh. We get company phones? I thought only directors and above had them. Plus a couple of exceptions on the team. Colleague 2. Of course. Why else create the list? Colleague 3. When do we get the phones? TD then had that Ferris Bueller secretary look and walked off. Never heard about the list again. Yep, they wanted us underlings to go on to 24/7 on-call status and pay for our own phones to do it. I work remotely for my company. My job involves answering phones. As I am remote, calls go through my cell phone. I put in for a company phone day one and they've been dragging their feet on it for the last 7 months. My manager is a champion, but it's just out of his hands. Someone came at me recently because they knew I used a cell phone but couldn't see me on the company's MDM. I told them that I am using my personal phone while I wait for the company phone to arrive. They told me that if I'm using my personal phone, I have to put it on the MDM. Thing is, if they do that, I can get in big trouble if other people use my phone once I sign the MDM policy. And my wife and I use each other's phones basically interchangeably. Whoever's is nearer at the time. Once I explained this, they told me I was in violation of company policy. I told them that I do not care. I put in for a company phone on my first day and agreed to use my personal phone without a stipend, in return for not having to put it on the MDM policy while I waited. If they have a fucking problem, they can get me the damn company phone I've waited 7 months for. With my manager's help, I have yet to experience consequences for this. I started at a company in 2016 without a personal mobile and refused to get one. They eventually gave in and provided me one when I had a falling about with the head of engineering, who was traveling with me, but via a different flight. How can we possibly meet up if I can't call you? It's an airport. Just meet me at baggage reclaim. Have you been to the airport before? No, but I've been to plenty of airports. They all have baggage reclaim. What if your flight gets delayed? If the flight is delayed, then it'll be in the sky and unable to call you. And when you land, the airport will have screens to tell you when planes are arriving. Eventually he gave up. Then shortly afterwards my boss issued me with a brand new iPhone. This guy was several years older than me. There is no way he hadn't flown before ubiquitous mobile phones that worked wherever you landed. Yeah. Back in those days, one of my coworkers said, if you were calling me on my cell phone, you'd better be paying for it. This was back in the days when minutes cost $. I admired him then. I did not have a cell phone for many years after that. Fortunately, I was never important enough to be reachable after hours anyway. I ran into this at a previous job that paid for cell phones for salespeople. Makes sense. But not on-call engineers. WTF? I was already having a bad day. Week? Month? When the CFO said, why should we? You all have smartphones anyway. My boss heard the commotion and managed to intervene right before I canceled my cell service right then and there. I would have regretted it sooner or later, but a few nights of not getting paged sounded real nice. Right then. I worked with a guy who was issued a company cell phone but didn't like that it had GPS on it or taking calls after hours. So, he carried it around during the day and left it charged under his work monitor overnight. I have readily told supervisors that I don't care if they're dying in a ditch and I'm the only person that can save them. Don't call me. And then blocked them in my contacts.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Haircast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.